those poets on all those worlds who spoke of war as such an unsightly thing, they never stood here.
Hello everyone and welcome to another movie review by Centipede Geek. Today I'm going to talk about the most recent film in the James Bond franchise, a film by the name of Skyfall. Skyfall stars, of course, once again, Daniel Craig playing as the famous James Bond character. This James Bond film is directed by none other than Sam Mendes. Sam Mendes is known for doing several Oscar-nominating films, and a few of those films have also won Oscar, such as he directed American Beauty, Road to Perdition, Jarhead. He also directed a film by the name of Revolutionary Road, and like I said, he directed the most recent James Bond film in the franchise known as Skyfall. So Skyfall pretty much is about, there's this rogue agent in the whole where the agents work out. There's this rogue agent that has went against everything, and he is letting everyone know who the Bond agents are, or who the agents are, one by one. He has a list of them, and every week he's letting out another few of them, and every they start to be taken out because of this rogue agent who's went rogue, and he's he's pretty much betrayed the entire agency industry. And I can't say too much more, because if I say anything about the beginning or anything like that, I feel like it'll spoil the movie. That's pretty much it. Bond has to retrieve this list and take out a terrorist that was once working for the industry that Bond works for. That's pretty much of the film Skyfall, directed by Sam Mendes, starring Daniel Craig, of course, as James Bond. Now, my opinions upon the first, this is the third film in the newly reamped and edgier version of James Bond. I thought Casino Royale was decent, nothing amazing. It took a little while to get started, a very long film. Quantum of Solace, I think, is just kind of the sequel to Casino Royale. Quantum of Solace is kind of a mindless action film. Not a lot of depth to it. They try to give it depth, but overall it's just a mindless action film. In my opinion, kind of pointless. It wasn't terrible, though. Now, Skyfall, I will say, is probably a lot better than I expected it to be. I went into this film with very low expectations. I wasn't expecting a lot because, in all, I'm just not a huge James Bond fan. It's not that the films are bad. It's just, there's nothing there that's kind of interesting me or intriguing me, really. But I will say, this film was not half as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like I said, very low expectations, and I walked out thinking, well, that wasn't too bad of a film. It was actually pretty decent. I will say, there are some interesting action sequences here and there, though none of the action sequences, stick out or anything. But there's one scene where they're in this big skyscraper, and there's this shadow sequence where James Bond is fighting. I won't say who, but he's fighting someone, and all you see is the two shadows, and the two shadows are hitting each other, and one of the characters is holding a gun, and the gun keeps going off or shooting. And that was kind of a really well done fighting sequence, I thought. There was also the beginning sequence involves the train. I thought the train sequence was kind of interesting. So, like I said, there's some pretty cool action sequences here and there. There was one thing at the ending, I will say, that I was not too fond of. I won't say what happens because it would spoil the movie and really ruin the movie for people who hadn't seen it. But the ending, the action-wise, the ending, I will say, was probably the best part. There was this, of course, explosions happen like they do in most James Bond films. It looks great in the, HD and everything on the big theater screen. The explosion looks great on screen. So overall, I really like the ending, the action-wise. Though what happens at the end, I wasn't too fond of. Just certain characters I felt weren't given justice. They didn't really, they weren't given enough dignity. And that's just my opinion. I also felt that I will say, though, that the film is a tad too long. It's not that I can't sit there for 2 hours and 20-some minutes. You know, The Avengers was that long. The Dark Knight Rises was almost 3 hours. It's not that I don't like long movies, but if the movie's going to be long, it needs to be entertaining for the entire length of the film. Well, Skyfall, I will say, it did keep me entertained, but it was just a tad too long. There was a few moments where it dragged and stuff like that. So the film's just a tad too long, and it probably could have ended maybe 10 or 15 minutes sooner than it actually did, and that may have made the film a little better. Now, I will say the villain in this James Bond movie titled Skyfall, I will say the villain was pretty decent. He's not amazing, but I will say probably out of all the villains that have been in the new revamped version of James Bond movies, I will say the villain is probably the best out of the three. Quantum of Solace's villain wasn't even much of a villain. He was just kind of whatever. The first villain, had the whole, he kept taking the inhaler and his eye kept bleeding. He was kind of cool, but I will say this villain, he's very, I won't say too much about him, I don't want to reveal anything, but he's very strange. It's the same guy who played the villain, the serial killer, in the remake of No Country for Old Men. So, if you like that actor, look for him as the villain in Skyfall. But overall, I thought he was decent. His acting was okay. Nothing too amazing, but a decent villain for the James Bond franchise in the movie titled Skyfall. So overall, I think Skyfall, I watched it on a Sunday afternoon at 4:30. It ran till about almost 7 o'clock at night. So overall, I felt Skyfall is a decent film. It's not half as bad as I thought. So if I was to give it a 1 out of 10 rating, I'd probably give Skyfall a solid... A 7's a little too high. I'm going to go ahead and just give Skyfall a solid 6. And the only reason it's going to get, I'll just go ahead and give Skyfall a 6.5, a 6.5. And that's just because I'm being generous. It's not that it was a bad movie, but there wasn't a lot there. The action sequences weren't too memorable, but for a Sunday afternoon watch, it's not that, not half bad of a film. Anyways, that's my review for the most recent James Bond film titled Skyfall. I'll just let you guys know, they left the ending kind of open, so we will most likely see another James Bond film in the next few years. Anyways, I will see you guys later with another movie review in the next few days. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the page below, and I will see you guys later.